about this? Dunmier? He's connected, Dwight.
I am obligated to destroy everything you have built.
Something's breaking in Tulsa King, and it's not just bones, it's Dwight's entire empire. The cracks that started as whispers in Season 2 have now exploded into full-blown chaos, and every piece of his kingdom is turning on him. His daughter's out for blood, his crew's fracturing under pressure, and the feds, Dunmier and Chickie, they're circling like sharks that smell a wounded animal. This isn't the confident, cigar-smoking Dwight we met back in Season 1. This is a man losing control of his myth in real time. The Brooklyn showdown isn't a comeback. It's an autopsy, and if the trailer's any clue, we're about to watch the King of Tulsa get eaten alive by his own mistakes. Because here's the brutal truth no one wants to admit. Dwight Manfredi was never built to survive the world he created. He's old school in a digital jungle, a gangster with honor codes in a world where everyone's wired, watching, and waiting to sell him out. He thinks he's fighting to protect his legacy, but what legacy? A distillery front? A broken family, and a crew of men who'd trade him for immunity and a pack of smokes? This isn't the rise of a king. It's the slow, agonizing unmasking of a man who still believes loyalty is bulletproof. Spoiler, it's not. Not anymore.
We want to take out the competition.
Dwight goes back home. Brooklyn gambit or trap? Dwight. The General Manfredi going back to Brooklyn isn't just a homecoming, it's a full-blown declaration of war disguised as a family visit. Let's be honest, the man doesn't do sentiment, he does strategy. But the streets he once ruled have evolved into a political minefield where old enemies don't stay buried, they wait. Going back home after years of exile, that's not nostalgia, that's stepping into the lion's den while bleeding. Every brick in Brooklyn remembers who Dwight was, and every person left standing has a reason to make sure he doesn't walk out alive this time. But here's the kicker, Dwight's ego might be the real trap. For all his swagger, his pride has become a liability the size of Tulsa itself. He's not walking into Brooklyn as the feared mob legend. He's walking in as the outcast who thought he could reinvent himself and got too comfortable playing cowboy. The trailer hints at tension, betrayal, and a quiet looming sense that Dwight's time in the shadows is over. But if he thinks he can outmaneuver Chickie and Vince on their own turf, he might just be proving them right, that the old dog really has lost his bite. And yet, maybe that's exactly why we can't look away. Dwight returning to Brooklyn feels biblical, like the sinner walking back into the temple he once burned down. It's poetic, reckless, and pure Sheridan-style self-destruction. Whether it's a power play or a suicide mission, this isn't just a trip down memory lane, it's the start of Dwight's reckoning. Every handshake, every look, every welcome back is loaded. Brooklyn isn't home anymore, it's the final chessboard, and this time Dwight's not sure if he's the king or the pawn.
I mean, what'd you think? I wasn't gonna hear about this? What's my cut?
You looking to start a war, Bill?
Well, you don't think anything's possible?
Tina's rage and the revelations that change everything. Tina Manfredi has been simmering for 2.5 seasons, and it looks like that lid's about to blow clean off. The daddy-daughter tension has always been a cocktail of guilt, resentment, and unspoken truth, but now it's spilling over into full-blown confrontation. Tina's rage isn't teenage rebellion, it's generational trauma in designer heels. She's tired of the half-truths, the blood-stained legacy, and the myth of Dwight the noble outlaw. The trailer teases a reckoning, one that could finally force Dwight to face what he's destroyed in the name of protecting his family. Except now, Tina's not asking for protection, she's demanding accountability. This is the kind of emotional explosion that cracks open a show's entire foundation. Because if Tina starts pulling on the right threads about her mother's past, about Dwight's secret deals, about who's really been keeping the Manfredi family safe, it could unravel everything. The revelations hinted at don't just change her view of her father, they change ours. What if Dwight's not the misunderstood anti-hero anymore? What if he's just a man who's been lying to himself and everyone else for years? Tina's fury feels like the audience's moral compass finally kicking in, and it's about damn time. But make no mistake, her rage comes with consequences. Every time someone goes after Dwight emotionally, someone else bleeds for it. And if Tina's words cut deep enough, we might see Dwight snap in ways we haven't since season 1. That unfiltered, brutal side that doesn't negotiate, doesn't forgive, and sure as hell doesn't lose control of his own story. Tina's truth might set her free, but it might also light the fuse on the most explosive father-daughter war Sheridan's ever written. The real question now, when the dust settles, will there even be a Manfredi family left? The Nico beatdown? Will Dwight cross the line in front of Chickie? If you thought Dwight had mellowed out, the Nico situation might be his breaking point, and it's got the kind of volatility that could make or break his already fractured alliance with Chickie. Nico's been a thorn in everyone's side, but this time, the trailer hints at something far uglier. A confrontation so brutal, it tests not just Dwight's loyalty, but his self-control. Chickie may talk about respect and family business, but let's not pretend he wants a show of dominance. He wants blood on the floor. And if Dwight loses his temper the way the trailer teases, we could be looking at a public execution disguised as a mob message. The irony? Dwight might think he's taking back control, but Chickie's the one pulling the strings. This is psychological warfare wrapped in old-school gangster theater. Chickie knows Dwight's pride, knows he can't walk away from a challenge, especially when it's personal. The beatdown becomes less about punishing Nico and more about forcing Dwight to dance to Chickie's tune. The second Dwight throws that first punch, he's back in the system he's been trying to escape since episode 1. The violence, the hierarchy, the cage that looks like power but smells like rot. And here's the kicker. If Tina, or even one of Dwight's new Tulsa allies, catches wind of what really went down, that moment of dominance could turn into the ultimate self-own. Because nothing screams I'm losing control like reverting to mob brutality in front of the very man you swore you'd never serve again. If this is Dwight's next move, it's not a power play, it's a relapse. And the sad truth? Chickie's probably smiling the whole time watching his old man's prodigal son destroy himself for free.
We want to take out the competition.
Jeremiah Dunmier. He's the tyrant of Tulsa.
Tyson gets cornered. Phone, arrest, and confessions. Tyson has officially reached that breaking point where loyalty feels like a curse, and every phone call sounds like a trap. The trailer flashes of him in custody, the feds circling like vultures. It's not just a subplot anymore, it's the domino that could send Dwight's empire crashing down. Tyson's been the moral heartbeat of the series, but let's be honest, he's also the softest target in the room. When the pressure hits, when the badge is in his face and Dwight's name starts echoing in the interrogation room, even the toughest ride or die can start seeing the exit sign. The feds know it too. They're not after Tyson, they're after his guilt. What's brutal here is how it mirrors the show's whole message. The old school loyalty code doesn't work in a world built on wiretaps and burner phones. Dwight taught Tyson everything about running the streets, but he didn't teach him how to survive when those same lessons become evidence. That phone call, the one the trailer teases like a loaded gun, might be the series' next ticking bomb. Whether it's a setup, a plea for help, or the feds baiting him into talking, it's clear the line between holding it down and going down is getting razor thin. If Tyson cracks even a little, it's game over. Not because he'd want to betray Dwight, but because he's the last piece of humanity left in a business built on rot. And when the system corners someone like him, it doesn't need to pull the trigger, it just waits for panic to do the job. The confession, the arrest, the moral collapse, it's the kind of gut punch that turns an empire into ashes. One voicemail at a time. Bodhi and Mitch exposed the dirty secrets behind the crew. Bodhi and Mitch have always been the quiet backbone of Dwight's empire, the brains and brawn working in the shadows, running the day-to-day while he plays kingpin philosopher. But let's be real, nobody stays clean in a crime family built on legit fronts and liquor deals that smell like blood money. The trailer hints that the past is clawing its way back, and this time it's not a rival gang or the feds doing the damage, it's exposure from within. The so-called loyal crew suddenly looks like a ticking time bomb of bad decisions, hidden accounts, and very public vulnerabilities. Mitch's honor among thieves vibe? Yeah, that's starting to feel more like denial than dignity. And Bodhi, the quiet tech guy who always knows too much, he might have finally crossed that invisible line where his brain becomes Dwight's biggest liability. Every shady transaction, every off-book deal, every time they said, "Don't worry, it's handled, it's all coming due." The kind of exposure hinted at in the trailer doesn't just end partnerships, it nukes entire networks. You can practically feel Dwight's paranoia setting in, because when your right-hand men start looking nervous, it usually means your enemies already know everything you don't. And that's the real danger. Not the law, not Dunmier, not even Chickie. It rotted from the inside. Tulsa King has been building toward this for 2 seasons, the slow decay of loyalty disguised as progress. If Bodhi and Mitch's secrets hit daylight, Dwight's not just losing his crew, he's watching his foundation crack in real time. And when the people who helped you build your empire become the ones holding the detonator, the collapse isn't a matter of if, it's when.
Dwight faces multiple threats this season.
He's certainly growing his empire on one hand, but fighting numerous battles from many fronts.
Chickie's comeback. Does Dwight's past finally chase him here? Chickie's comeback isn't just another subplot. It's a ghost story wrapped in a power play. You can almost feel the New York air creeping into Tulsa again, that suffocating sense that no matter how far Dwight ran, the mob never stopped watching. Chickie has always been the serpent in Dwight's garden, smiling, coiled, patient, and if the trailer's any hint, he's not here to reconnect, he's here to reclaim. Every ounce of peace Dwight carved out in Oklahoma is about to get dragged through the dirt, because Chickie doesn't want revenge, he wants validation. He wants the man who humiliated him to crawl back under the same leash. What's terrifying and kind of brilliant is how Sheridan's writing is making this personal war feel like destiny. Chickie doesn't need to send a hit squad, he just needs to show up. His presence alone unravels Dwight's illusion of control. One conversation, one smirk, and suddenly, Dwight's the soldier again, angry, reactive, and too proud to admit he's walking into a setup. You can practically hear Chickie whispering, "You thought you were free, Dwight. You're still mine." It's Mob Psychology 101, break the man before you break his empire. And honestly, this might be the best storytelling move the show's pulled all season. Chickie, returning to the picture, forces Dwight to face everything he's been running, from the guilt, the ego, the violence that he swore he left behind in Brooklyn. Tulsa may have made him a king, but Chickie's about to remind him who crowned him in the first place. And when that truth hits, it's not going to be a fight, it's going to be a reckoning. Crossfire between feds, Dunmier, and Dwight's collapse. If there's one thing Tulsa King does better than most crime dramas, it's turning a turf war into a 3-way bloodbath. And this new crossfire between the feds, Dunmier, and Dwight feels like the kind of storm you don't walk away from. The trailer practically screams chaos. The law tightening its grip, Dunmier tightening his noose, and Dwight caught dead center trying to outplay both sides with a crumbling crew and a phone full of ghosts. This isn't strategy anymore, it's survival. And the worst part? Every move Dwight makes just gives one side more ammo to bury him with. The feds aren't hunting Dunmier, they're building a case around Dwight. Dunmier doesn't want to kill him, he wants to bleed him dry. Everyone in this triangle is using the other, and Dwight's one step ahead. Confidence is starting to look more like delusion. He's playing checkers while everyone else is running wiretaps and cutting deals in back rooms. And with every ally that disappears, every operation that falls apart, he's becoming the thing he swore he'd never be again. A pawn in someone else's empire. What makes it all sting is that Dwight should have known better. He built this whole Tulsa empire on the illusion of control, pretending he could go toe-to-toe with men who've been playing the long game since before he got out of prison. Now, the feds see him as bait, Dunmier sees him as leverage, and Chickie sees him as unfinished business. The king of Tulsa is standing in the middle of 3 guns pointed at his head, and the real question isn't if he falls, but who gets to pull the trigger first. Family fallout. When blood ties become weapons. Family has always been Dwight's soft spot. The one thing he swears gives him purpose while it quietly tears him apart. But in Tulsa King Season 3, those blood ties aren't binding anymore. They're bleeding. The trailer's hints of Tina's fury, her cold stares, her silence that feels louder than gunfire, it all says one thing. Dwight's "I did it all for family" narrative is collapsing under the weight of his own lies. His version of love has always come with a price tag, and now his daughter's done paying. What used to be loyalty has curdled into leverage, and every emotional debt Dwight ignored is finally coming due. The brilliance and cruelty of this family fallout is how it mirrors the show's central theme. You can't build an empire without breaking your home first. Dwight thought he could be both protector and predator, father and Don, but Season 3 is proving you can't play God and expect your family not to burn for it. Tina's anger isn't just personal, it's generational. It's the rage of a daughter who's realizing she was collateral damage in her father's ego trip. And if Dwight thought the mob was ruthless, wait until he sees what betrayal looks like from someone who shares his DNA. And that's where Tulsa King gets viciously poetic. Chickie, Dunmier, the feds, they might all want Dwight's empire, but it's Tina who holds the real power now. She knows where to hit him, not in the streets, but in the soul. The family angle has stopped being a subplot and become the emotional war zone of the season. And if this fallout keeps building the way it's teased, Dwight won't lose because someone shot him, he'll lose because the only people he truly cared about finally stopped forgiving him. Who survives the Brooklyn showdown? The body count that's coming. The Brooklyn showdown isn't just another mob face-off, it's the reckoning Tulsa King has been promising since Season 1. Every thread Dwight's been pulling, the distillery deal, the feds, Dunmier's chokehold, Chickie's creeping return, it all leads here, back to the place he swore he'd never set foot in again. And this time, it's not business, it's blood. The trailer's tone practically reeks of doom, tense silences, gunmetal shadows, and that gut-wrenching question nobody wants to ask, who's making it out of Brooklyn alive? Because make no mistake, this isn't going to be a clean negotiation. It's going to be a purge. This is Sheridan's brand of poetry. Every empire ends where it began, just messier and louder. Dwight's walking into a city that doesn't forgive, and sure as hell doesn't forget. Chickie's not just bringing muscle, he's bringing memory, the kind that cuts deeper than bullets. Every betrayal, every act of defiance, every insult Dwight threw back across the ocean of their shared past, it's all been simmering, waiting for this exact moment. And when that trigger gets pulled, it won't just be a firefight, it'll be a generational execution. Old blood versus new rules, played out on streets that already smell like the ghosts of better men. And the body count? It's not going to be kind. Don't expect plot armor here, expect carnage. Expect redemption bought too late and alliances ending in gunsmoke. Because the brilliance of Tulsa King has always been this: Dwight's not the hero, he's the last man standing in a story that's been trying to kill him since it began. Brooklyn won't just be the end of an arc, it'll be the cleansing fire that decides who deserves to walk away from the ashes, if anyone even does. So maybe that's the real tragedy of Tulsa King. It's not about who wins, it's about who still believes they can. Dwight's too proud to see that the game's already moved past him. The feds don't need to arrest him. Dunmier doesn't need to kill him. Chickie doesn't even need to lift a finger. Dwight's doing the dirty work himself. One bad deal, one misplaced trust, one burst of ego at a time. And when that Brooklyn dust settles, when the smoke clears and the body count's written in red, we won't be talking about a king anymore. We'll be talking about a cautionary tale, the story of a man who thought he could rule both worlds and ended up crushed by both. But hey, maybe that's exactly what makes this show so damn addictive, because Tulsa King doesn't promise justice, it promises consequences. And Season 3 is serving them cold, calculated, and soaked in whiskey. So go ahead, call Dwight the King one last time, but don't be shocked when the crown hits the concrete. Russell Lee Washington Jr.'s entrance. Samuel L. Jackson game changer? If Tulsa King wanted to drop a grenade into the middle of this war, they just pulled the pin with Russell Lee Washington Jr. And let's be real, you don't cast Samuel L. Jackson to play second fiddle. His entrance is teased in the Episode 4 trailer like a looming thunderstorm, the kind that doesn't just pass by, it levels the whole damn block. Up until now, the Dunmier War has been a chess game between Dwight and and Jeremiah. But Russell's arrival feels like a third player flipping the table over entirely. What makes his presence so dangerous is ambiguity. Is Russell an ally, a rival, or something far worse, an opportunist circling both Dwight and the Dunmiers like a shark smelling blood? The trailer hints at swagger, menace, and the kind of unpredictability that throws everyone else off their axis. If Dwight thought Jeremiah was a nightmare, imagine tossing Samuel L. Jackson into the mix with his signature authority, venom, and charisma. Suddenly, this isn't just about old money versus old muscle, it's about who can actually control the chaos once Russell steps onto the board. And let's not kid ourselves. His role could be the single factor that saves Tulsa King from slipping into predictability. Russell Lee Washington Jr. isn't a background character. He's the wild card that makes both Dwight and Jeremiah sweat. Episode 4 looks ready to confirm what we've all suspected. When Jackson shows up, everyone else better shut up because the real game changer has finally arrived.
Does not leave family behind. This could be the greatest opportunity of my life, and it comes with danger.
Jeremiah Dunmier's next move, squeeze or strike. Jeremiah Dunmier isn't playing the reckless street-level game Dwight is used to. He's the type of old money shark who knows you don't need to swing fists when you own the water everyone's drowning in. The Episode 4 trailer hints that Jeremiah is done watching and ready to act, but the real question is how? Does he go for the slow suffocation, cutting Dwight off from every connection, every safe haven, every dime until he caves? Or does he opt for the blunt force trauma of an all-out strike, letting blood flow in the streets to remind Tulsa exactly who runs it? What makes Jeremiah terrifying is that both moves are on the table. The squeeze keeps Dwight flailing in quicksand, watching his empire crumble with no single point of attack to retaliate against. The strike, on the other hand, risks chaos, but chaos that Jeremiah can control while Dwight burns himself out just trying to survive. The trailer teases this crossroads perfectly, giving us flashes of tension that suggest Jeremiah isn't just escalating the war, he's about to dictate its terms. And here's the brutal irony. Dwight's not built to handle either. He's a bruiser in a war of kings, and Jeremiah's next move could expose just how outclassed he really is. Episode 4 looks like the moment where Jeremiah decides if Dwight's empire dies a slow, humiliating death or goes up in flames overnight. Either way, the Dunmier dynasty wins, and Dwight looks more like a pawn being toyed with than the king he pretends to be. Dwight's empire on shaky ground. Dwight's so-called empire is starting to look less like a fortress and more like a house of cards built on quicksand. The Episode 4 trailer drops enough hints to make one thing clear. The cracks aren't just visible, they're spreading. The crew that was once glued together by loyalty is showing signs of fracture, his allies are questioning whether following Dwight is worth the body count, and the feds are circling like vultures waiting for the collapse. If Season 1 was about building something new, Season 3 feels like the painful reminder that Dwight might have built it on rotten foundations. The irony here is brutal. Dwight survived prison, rival gangs, and New York's power plays, only to be undone by his own team, and the sheer weight of enemies he underestimated. The Episode 4 trailer doesn't just tease action, it teases erosion. Every promise Dwight made, every illusion of control is slipping through his hands. And when a king loses faith from within, the throne doesn't just wobble, it topples. So is Dwight's empire already crumbling, or are we watching the long, drawn-out demolition of a man who thought loyalty could be bought with favors and fear? The trailer is painting a picture that fans can't ignore. The Tulsa King might be about to learn the ugliest truth of all, that the crown was never really his to wear. Family as leverage. Is Dwight's past becoming his weak spot? For all Dwight's swagger about being untouchable, the trailer for Episode 4 makes one thing brutally obvious. His family is the crack in the armor everyone's aiming at. Dwight can outmuscle street thugs, he can outmaneuver small-time hustlers, but when it comes to blood ties, he's soft. Always has been. The Dunmiers, the feds, even Musso, they've figured out Achilles' heel. And the cruel beauty of it is that family doesn't just weaken Dwight, it forces him to make stupid rapid moves, the kind that turns strategy into desperation, it's not hard to see the setup. Episode 4 looks like it's pushing the idea that Dwight's past, his estranged daughter, his fractured relationships, even the surrogate family he's cobbled together in Tulsa is no longer ballast, it's bait. The war with Jeremiah isn't going to be won by gunfire in the streets, it's going to be fought in Dwight's heart and his head. Can he protect his people without sacrificing his empire? Or worse, will he sacrifice the empire just to keep what little family he has left intact? And here's the kicker. For a man who once ruled with fear and power, nothing makes him look weaker than fighting for family in a world that doesn't care about it. Episode 4's trailer teases this perfectly. It's not just Dwight versus the Dunmiers, it's Dwight versus himself. And if the show has the guts to lean into that, we might be watching a king dethroned not by bullets, but by love. Bloodshed on the horizon? The Episode 4 trailer doesn't whisper about violence, it all but guarantees it. The Dunmier War isn't some cold backroom chess match anymore. It's barreling toward open conflict, and Dwight is standing right in the middle like a man who hasn't realized the avalanche already started. Every shot of the trailer drips with tension, suggesting that negotiations are done, threats are meaningless, and the only language left to speak is blood. And if you think Dwight's crew is ready for that kind of fight, the trailer hints otherwise. They're rattled, fractured, and one bad move away from scattering when the real bullets start flying. But this isn't just about random carnage. The Dunmiers are old money with old grudges, and their kind of violence doesn't leave bodies in alleys, it leaves messages carved into history. Episode 4 looks like the turning point where the gloves come off, and Dwight's enemies stop trying to suffocate him slowly, and instead decide to put him down hard. The trailer teases faces of fear, looming confrontations, and enough loaded guns to remind us why Sheridan's world is never content with quiet scheming. It has to end in spilled blood. And here's the brutal truth. Dwight doesn't have the numbers, the resources, or the leverage to win a war like this. He's a street soldier wading into a dynasty conflict, and when blood finally hits the pavement, it won't just be his enemies paying the price. Episode 4 looks ready to answer the question no fan wants to ask. Is Dwight leading his people into battle or leading them straight into the slaughterhouse? Old school Dwight versus the Dunmier dynasty's old money power. Dwight's entire brand is old school, knuckles, loyalty, intimidation, and that prison-hardened instinct to never back down. But the Episode 4 trailer sets him against something far deadlier than rival muscle, the Dunmier dynasty, a family that's been buying politicians, owning judges, and stacking generational power long before Dwight ever lit his first cigar. This isn't just a mob war, it's a culture clash between blunt force street smarts and the suffocating grip of old money. And the uncomfortable truth is that Dwight's way of doing things looks prehistoric against an empire that doesn't need to pull triggers when it can pull strings. The Dunmiers don't threaten Dwight by beating his crew bloody in the streets, they destroy him by cutting off his oxygen supply. They can shut down his businesses with one phone call, disappear allies with one favor, and bleed him out financially without ever firing a shot. Dwight, meanwhile, is still swinging like it's 1985, thinking one big move will scare them into submission. The trailer teases just how laughably outmatched he might be, like a street brawler stepping into a war room full of generals who already planned his funeral. That's the genius of this brewing feud. It's not a question of who's tougher, it's a question of who actually understands the battlefield. Dwight wants to win through grit and loyalty, but the Dunmiers already own the ground he's standing on. Episode 4 looks set to expose whether Dwight can evolve or if this war proves that old school muscle can't compete with dynasty power that's been stacking chips for decades. Theo's death fallout still haunting Dwight? Theo's death may feel like old business, but the Episode 4 trailer makes it clear that the fallout is far from buried. For Dwight, it's not just about another body in the ground, it's about the ghost that refuses to leave the room. Theo wasn't just a casualty, he was a statement, and that statement keeps echoing, shaking Dwight's already shaky foundations, and because every power player left in Tulsa knows what Theo's ruin really means. Dwight doesn't just make enemies, he leaves collateral damage behind him. The blood may be dry, but the stain is permanent. The real weight of Theo's death isn't guilt in a moral sense, it's leverage. The feds will exploit it, the Dunmiers will weaponize it, and Dwight's own crew will see it as proof that loyalty to him is a death sentence waiting to happen. The Episode 4 trailer teases the cracks this has left wide open, distrust festering inside the crew, enemies circling with new confidence, and Dwight himself rattled in a way we haven't seen since Season 1. Theo's ruin wasn't just a loss, it was a crack in the armor that everyone else is now clawing at. And that's the most haunting part. Dwight doesn't have time to mourn, but the guilt seeps into his decisions anyway. Every move he makes looks clouded by that ghost, by the reminder that one wrong step doesn't just cost him, it cost everyone who dares to stand next to him. Episode 4 seems ready to prove that Theo's death isn't a footnote in the story, it's the wound that won't close, and it might be the very thing that finally drags Dwight down for good. The Fed's real endgame revealed? The Feds circling Dwight isn't news, that's been a constant hum in the background since Season 1. But Episode 4's trailer hints at something different, something nastier. This isn't about catching a mobster anymore, it's about dismantling the entire mythos Dwight represents. The FBI isn't chasing one man, they're going after the empire, the culture, the legend of a guy who refuses to die in the dirt. They don't just want Dwight behind bars, they want him erased, discredited, and rendered powerless. And that's the sinister brilliance of their endgame. Forget bullets and busts, they're starving Dwight slowly, making every legitimate move look dirty, every loyal ally look compromised, and every new venture look like a setup. If Episode 4's hints are real, the feds aren't playing fair, they're playing forever. The Dunmiers might squeeze, but the FBI strangles. That kind of pressure doesn't just force bad decisions, it makes Dwight bleed in ways he can't patch up with muscle or money. But here's the kicker. When law enforcement stops chasing justice and starts building a trophy case, the rules change. Dwight isn't just fighting criminals anymore, he's fighting an entire system that doesn't want him punished, it wants him extinct. That's the kind of war you don't win in the street. It's the kind of war that drags your soul into the courtroom, the headlines, and the history books. And if the feds really are revealing their hand in Episode 4, Dwight might already be too deep in the trap to claw his way back out. So here's where I land. If this trailer's telling us anything, it's that Dwight isn't climbing the ladder anymore. He's dangling from it, while the feds and the Dunmiers are shaking it loose. And honestly, maybe that's the brilliance of Season 3. This isn't just Dwight versus one rival. It's Dwight versus everyone. New money, old mob, the government, even the ghost of his own family. It's messy, it's brutal, and it's exactly what this show needed to remind people it can still punch harder than half the cookie-cutter crime dramas out there. But let's not kid ourselves. Someone's blood is about to buy the next round of business, and if the trailer's right, Dwight may not be holding the knife this time.